Okay, so my dream machine then, well, it should be a 12-inch MacBook, exactly as we have the 12-inch MacBook today, as thin and light and all that. But I would like it to be able to run both iOS apps and OS X apps. So basically running both kinds of apps, my favorite iPad apps and also my favorite OS X apps. For example, Final Cut Pro 10 on OS X and for example editorial on my iPad. I would like the 12-inch MacBook to be able to run both kinds of apps, both iOS apps and OS X apps. And basically we have already seen some really powerful ARM processors from Apple. A9X, for example, it's really powerful. So we already have desktop class processors in the iOS devices. So we could actually have a MacBook with an ARM processor. But how do we then solve to be able to run OS X apps then? Does it need both kinds of processors, an Intel chip and an ARM chip? Probably, and to be able to run both kinds of apps with full performance, you can't emulate the chips. So what my dream machine need to have is basically both an ARM chip, an A9X processor, an A10 processor maybe, and an Intel chip in the same machine. Because be able to run these apps with full performance, you can't emulate a chip. So you need to have them physically installed into the device itself. And of course, my dream machine would have an excellent battery life too, at least 12 hours or so. Then I could have it with me all the time, everywhere. And I don't need more than one port on my 12-inch MacBook, exactly as today's 12-inch MacBook has. So then I don't need to charge my device as often. So if it will have a 12 hour of battery life, then it would be okay to me, because then I can have it all day long working on it. So I will do my video recordings on my iPhone and transfer them via AirDrop to my dream machine, the 12-inch MacBook, and edit the videos there in Final Cut Pro 10. But I will also like to have some iPad apps, for example editorial, an excellent editor, an excellent markdown text editor to write in. So that's why I would like to have the possibility to run iPad apps on my dream machine. And I would actually want to have a touch display on my 12-inch MacBook too. And the reason is not that I would like to use my fingers to navigate and so on, but when I read on my 11-inch MacBook Air today, I often hold it in the display itself when laying down in the bed, for example. So then I hold my MacBook with both hands and so on. Then it would be cool to have a touch display so I can navigate in the web browser and so on, scrolling the page up and down using my fingers. That's the reason why I would like to have a touch display on my dream machine to the 12-inch MacBook. And of course I would like to have a lot of RAM, of course, at least 8 GB, but preferably 16 GB of RAM, so I can use Final Cut Pro 10 in a good way on it. And I think a SSD drive on 256 GB or so storage is enough for me in my dream machine, because I use iCloud a lot, iCloud Drive and so on, and also Dropbox cloud storage. So I don't need so much storage on the device itself. So 256 gigabyte is more than enough for me. Probably 128 gigabyte is enough too, really, so I don't need more. But working with 4K video a lot is kind of demanding on storage, but I only have 64 gigabyte on my iPad Air 2 now, and editing and using 4K video every day. So 64 gigabyte on the iPad Air 2 is more than enough for me already. So I think 128 or even better 256 gigabyte is more than enough. So to summarize, my dream machine would be like a 12-inch MacBook, but having two processors, one Intel chip and one ARM chip, to be able to run both OS 10 and iOS 10 or so, I don't know, but both operating systems. So I can run two kinds of apps, iPad apps, iOS apps, and OS 10 apps on the same machine. And it should have a touch display, so I can use it when I'm holding it in the display itself, for example while laying down in bed. And I would like to have 16 gigabyte of RAM and at least 128 gigabyte of SSD and a great battery life, at least 12 hours. That's my dream machine. I don't need a good camera in the 12-inch MacBook because I use my iPhone for that. And if this dream machine would be a reality, then it would be a great companion to my iPhone. So I will use my iPhone as a pocket computer and the 12-inch MacBook, this dream machine I'm talking about, as my working machine. I will use it instead of my iPad Air 2. So that is what I would like to have, and I would buy such a device in an instant if Apple would release one. Definitely buy one. I think actually that would be a really great device that many people will buy, because then you have everything in one device. And if you think about it, today's big iPad Pro, the 12-inch iPad Pro, is actually like an 12-inch MacBook, because you need to have a keyboard to it. So an iPad Pro with a keyboard is basically a 12-inch MacBook. Not a big difference there, more than the 12-inch MacBook has more powerful operating system and apps. That's the huge difference. And that's why I would like to have both kinds of apps in the same device. Okay, bye.